Hey everybody, and thanks for joining the last session where we're going to dig into what matters most, explore the future of work and skills and what the priority is for teaching social and emotional skills, the evidence base, the practice, and importantly, the role of technology. If we're not following one another on Twitter, my Twitter handle's at the bottom of the screen, so feel free to follow, to tweet out, take screenshots, and I'll be sure to follow you back. A couple of great sessions. Whilst I am from Microsoft, I work in Microsoft Education Marketing, where I'm a director based here at headquarters in Redmond, Washington State. I bring with me a quarter of a century experience as a teacher, as a principal, as a regional leader across schools in Australia, and then my work with the Principals Institute of Australia across Asia Pacific. And then since then, working with districts, working with countries, working with regions across the globe on education transformation, leveraging digital thoughtfully to drive improvement agendas. A couple of great sessions that we had just then. Brian made it compelling. I loved his quotes. I wrote down on my notepad here, should I panic? Who clicked it? And there was an attack called Thanos. That grabbed my attention. And Matthew, well, he just left me feeling reassured, which was great. We're going to talk about what matters most for our customers, and we're going to explore the social and emotional dimension. When we talk with education leaders across the globe, a number of things bubble up at the moment. They're concerned about inclusion. They're concerned that since the events of COVID, even prior to those, they were struggling to meet the differentiated needs of their students. When you think about it, a third of American students have got some form of temporary or permanent learning disability. 14% are on IDEA support. There's this concern that people express around career readiness. We know there'll be 149 million digital jobs by 2025. Are we best preparing diverse groups of students to be able to take advantage of the digital economy? Learning loss is a huge challenge at the moment, and it's impacting different groups of students differently. That's a concern. And well-being, a massive concern across the globe at the moment. 44% of young people in the US have actually contemplated suicide. 44%. There's been a 40% increase between 2009 and 2019 prior to COVID. Where young people expressed feelings of sadness and hopelessness. So the kids are not feeling all right, but this isn't a misery session, and you're going to be asked a question in a moment to answer, which is a how are you feeling question based upon the excitement of the last couple of days. Ron, did I manage to lose my screen then, or can you still see the slide?
I can see the slides, the mood meter.
Excellent, that's good. Okay, mood meter is really handy because it organizes emotions by whether they're positive or pleasant over to this side where they might feel unpleasant or negative. And each of the moods is organized from low energy to high energy. For example, you know, if I was feeling kind of an unpleasant low energy emotion, I'd be feeling alone. If I was feeling kind of like a low energy but pleasant emotion, I might feel proud or joyful. High energy, ecstatic. So I'm not sure how you're feeling at the moment, but you're going to get a chance right now live to go to this link you can see at the top of the screen on a browser, on your cell phone, polev.com/Mark Sparvell 903. Let's wait a couple of moments. Sorry.
Mark, I'm going to try, maybe I'll put that same link in the chat to everyone.
You do that.
Let me make sure I do that right. Do I need to put in HTTPS or something in front of it?
I think so. Yeah, I just put HTTP://
It's Mark Sparvell 903.
And we'll see whether anybody's alive and awake in the audience because their answers will pop up on the screen.
Got it. So let's see if I did that. I'm going to enter it right now. I put it, you see it in the chat to the entire audience.
I can see it flashing. Social and emotional learning is that process by which students develop social and emotional skills. And all of the districts, all of the funding is being oriented around that. More on that in just a moment. These skills are imperative for today's youngest generation. It prepares them for the demands of the rapidly changing workforce, positions them to achieve better outcomes in school, and importantly, equips them to be able to participate in society. And there's 30 years worth of empirical evidence to back this up as being important. So engaging in an emotion check-in like we're doing at the moment does a few things. By the way, if you're interested, all I've done is inserted Pole EV directly into PowerPoint. Nothing fancy done there whatsoever at all, but I'm sure you'll agree it's kind of like an interesting, engaging activity when you're working with an audience, or if you're running a staff meeting, or if you're a teacher designing lessons. Good to see someone managed to squeeze in 2 words by putting a /. The good thing is the poll can be shared afterwards for people to have a look at. You can continue to respond to that. We can share out that link afterwards, no problem at all. Cool. I grabbed some of the local news from Education News over the last 2 weeks, just to have a look at what was happening in the landscape. $130 billion forms part of the American Rescue Plan, and this gives schools the resources that they need to reopen face-to-face and hybrid in ways which are safe and which focus on learning loss and, importantly, identification, intervention, and monitoring of well-being. And you can see well-being, social and emotional learning, is running hot to trot. It's always been important in education. It's now more important for more people. Have a look at this from EdWeek, which had a survey with companies who deliver edtech solutions to the education industry. And you can see on the left-hand side, when asked whether they planned to introduce new products and services or enhance existing products, 41% said yes, and it's for social and emotional learning. And over on the right-hand side, when they looked at the type of companies that were involved in the survey, they were involved in professional development, or down here they were involved in special education, or they were involved in a focus on social and emotional learning. Now, this topic's not new. I said there was 30 years of empirical evidence running behind it. Back in 2016, the World Economic Forum produced this awesome paper, which drew the connection between technology and social and emotional learning. If you like, it built a case to say that used the right way, that technology can actually contribute, especially around areas like immersive learning experiences. More on that coming up. Opportunities to make collaborative and responsible decisions, and the use of data and analytics to help close feedback loops and allow educators to intervene early and often. And I'll show you what we're thinking about in those particular feature categories in just a moment. So that was 2016. Right up until 2 weeks ago, Microsoft hosted the launch of this really important piece of research from the Organization for Economic and Cooperative Development. They studied for 3 years across 10 countries how social and emotional skills were developed, what their impact was on life success, employment success, and academic success. And if you're interested in this, if your faculty, if your customers are interested, there's a link down the bottom for the launch event, plus through that you can access the full report, which covers policy and practice. So Microsoft is deeply invested in this topic around well-being, with a particular focus on social and emotional learning. And we know prior to COVID, as I touched about before, there was a significant issue with mental health and well-being across the globe. This is US data from CDC, but it's the same in the UK, with 20% of adolescents have experienced a mental health problem on any given year. 50% of mental health issues are basically established by age 14, and 74% of future mental health issues established by age 25. So what are these social and emotional skills? How can they help young people to navigate life and learning in the workplace more successfully? The skills themselves ladder up to a range of capabilities, and I'll get to why this matters for the future of work in just a moment. But let's just touch on some of them. Social awareness is really critical. Social awareness is this ability to recognize and understand social interactions through empathy and be able to navigate social situations and conflict. Self-management is this ability to regulate your own emotions, your thoughts, and your behaviors. So if you want to work effectively in a team, you're going to need to be socially aware and to self-manage. Relationship skills, that's about establishing, maintaining positive and productive relationships. A really critical one is the responsible decision making. So making good choices about your behavior, good choices about your interactions with others. So on those data points again, why it matters in education. Microsoft Education is interested in improved student performance and well-being, and you can see that out of 27,000 students in a meta-analysis, there was an 11 percentile point increase in academic outcomes when there was a focus on social and emotional learning. You're better prepared for all-round success and later in life. If you're in a quiz night coming up, there was a really famous study, I think it's called the Pew Research, which tracked kindergartners for 40 years to explore, did a focus on social and emotional learning in kindergarten make a difference? 40 years later, it made a statistically significant difference to overall participation in life, in employment, in income, relationship success, a whole host of factors. And of course, if you want to get a job, create a job or keep a job, social and emotional skills are going to be your ticket. So this is about the readiness. We did a study with McKinsey & Company's global practice, which explored and uncovered that 30 to 40% of future growth jobs will place a premium on social and emotional skills. So I'm going to ask you to ignore something that pops up in a moment, but not just yet. When we look at new future-ready skills, we see a decline predicted in physical, manual, repetitive tasks. We see a decline in requirements for basic cognitive skills, fundamental literacy, numeracy. We see an increase, projected increase in higher cognitive skills, synthesis, analysis, hypothesis generation, a massive predicted increase in social and emotional skills, and a phenomenally gigantic increase in the demand for technical skills for the digital economy, and that's across all employment categories, so not just in coding, computing, and the tech industry. But what's missing right now? Over on the right-hand side, a survey of HR professionals across the globe identified these as missing immediately. So this isn't preparing for the future of work, but now. Problem solving, critical thinking. The ability to deal with change, complexity, ambiguity. And the ability to communicate, and that also means to self-regulate, to be self-aware, to engage in collaborative activities. Over on the left-hand side, these are the skills in a small study done in the UK of students who were successful during remote learning in the UK. Just thought it was interesting that the students who were successful in remote learning demonstrated pretty much all of the skills that were missing right now in the world of work and are projected to be missing over the coming years. So people want more social and emotional learning. These are from 3 different studies. Teachers say it's their highest priority, almost 60% of them in 2021. So if we're not talking about social and emotional learning, then schools and systems aren't listening because they see this as critical for navigating the next couple of years of the blast zone. Emotions are contagious. So People are particularly likely to catch the emotions of their leaders. So when we talk about social and emotional learning, we're not talking about just what happens to the students, but we're talking about the culture of the school, the role of leaders, the role of teachers, the role of the community. Here's something trivial and interesting for your next quiz night too. There was an experiment done around people who hold a grudge. Ever known someone like that? Can never forgive someone, feels like if they forgive it's a sign of weakness. They had people forgive someone, and then they had people think about a time that somebody did badly by them that they hadn't forgiven them. And they had both of the groups march up and down a hill. People bearing a grudge literally, consistently, time and time again, reported the hill to be steeper and more difficult to climb. It was like holding a grudge. It was literally a backpack of rocks holding them down. Here's a couple of research papers you might be interested in. They're all free. I'll make sure you get the links, and they don't attempt to sell Microsoft. They're just our contribution back to thinking. The class of COVID explored the perspectives of social anthropologists, economists, psychologists, behavioral molecular biologists around what was the trauma of COVID doing under the hood to kids' brains. And learning forward, this was a global survey across India, US and the UK, just exploring what it was that students liked, didn't like, what they missed, and oops, shouldn't have clicked that, what they missed and what would they have liked to see more of. Mark, mark, mark. We're still on the picture of the pretty brain, I think. Here's one thing John Medina, who was the molecular biologist, said to me that I thought was interesting. When we think about our staff, we think about our kids over the events of last year. He said the brain is built for stress. It doesn't mind it. It primes us to fight, flight, freeze. It enables actions. Stress triggers a behavior through an emotional response. But he said the brain hates feeling out of control. And his comment to me was that whatever we do to give students a sense of control and certainty in a world that seems out of control is the best thing that we can do for them if we want them to engage in learning and be successful. So creating environments that focus on well-being, that focus on safety, that focus on quality teaching, that gives students a sense of control, voice, choice, agency, it settles the brain, which is important because emotions are literally the gatekeeper here. They're the gatekeeper to how we think and process information, our cognition. They're the gatekeeper to what drives us, our motivation. And they're the gatekeeper to where we choose to place our most limited resource, our time. They're the gatekeeper to our attention. If we want our staff and students learning, if we want our employees focused, positive and productive, we must pay attention to the emotional dimension. Got about 8 minutes. So students in 2020, this was from some of the survey results, not surprisingly, frustrated, stressed, and very cautious. But check this out in 2021. They're optimistic. Why is that? They're a little bit excited and they remain cautious. What about staff? Teachers in 2020, stressed, frustrated, and cautious. 2021, optimism, stressed and still cautious, but less. The brain has as many neurons as there are stars in the Milky Way. It is designed to adapt. It is designed to solve. This is what's happening. What we're seeing is that optimism is rising. If you like, hope is on the horizon, and people generally feel that it's possible that some goodness might come out of this terrible event in the long run for education. So we asked teachers, what did they need to know more of to help them navigate this next phase? They didn't talk about maths and they didn't talk about spelling. They said we need to know about the complexities that students face, we need to know more about their emotional state, and we need to know more about what helps to motivate them. So in the last 6 minutes, let's have a look at some of the approaches that Microsoft are involved with. Most of these are free. Most of these operate whether you're on a Android device, a Google device, a Mac. So this is just our ongoing 8-9 year commitment to this topic. We know that developing an emotional vocabulary is important. Kids learn about 5,000 new words a year. 10% comes from direct instruction. The rest comes from use. Why does it matter? When it comes to emotions, you've got to name it to tame it. We've got to help students build strategies and practice social and emotional skills. We've got to give them good models to look at, to observe. It's where reading matters. We've got to have opportunities for quiet moments to reflect and think about what's happening inside and outside. And we've got to make it personal. Learning's got to be fun. It's got to be relevant. Here's some things for your staff, whether it's in a school or in a business. Yale Centre for Emotional Intelligence is offering a free course for school staff on emotional intelligence in times of complexity and ambiguity. I'll make sure you've got a link to that. I've done it. It's excellent. I founded a group on Facebook, the Cell in Edu community. We're getting close to 14,000 members now. It's moderated and it's just about sharing best practice and next practice. Getting social with learning matters. FLIPGRID is free. It's where social learning happens. Social learning is any time that we contribute ideas, we answer questions, we learn from one another, we share resources, and video is really important. And there's a squillion ways that if you can think it, you can FLIPGRID it. So it's a tool that students can use across multiple platforms. The great thing is it has immersive reader built in. That's from Microsoft, which will read to the students to make it completely accessible content for them. Exploiting what works matters, and that's an easy strategy for teachers. They can use emojis, they can customize backgrounds, they can use the text chat in ways like we've just done to ask, how are you feeling? A strategy I suggest for teachers is get rid of all of the muck on your desktop and replace it with a positive affirmation or simply a beautiful, soothing, natural background. So when you wake up and open your computer, you're not immediately stressed by all of those unfiled documents and shortcuts that you no longer use. Using little things like quick video tips that are already easily available online to start a session with your staff, with your students, that matters. Recognizing and rewarding behavior. So this is a free digital sticker pack available. It's in Microsoft Whiteboard and Teams. You can obviously grab it and use it anywhere. What's important is that these stickers have been carefully chosen from an existing psychological character trait model called the Big Five. So rather than saying to kids, good work, you can say, hey, Mark, Ron, you showed thoughtfulness, or you showed great persistence today. That way we're rewarding something that matters. Last few, just to show you, in case you weren't aware of all of these amazing resources which can be used to support social and emotional learning, Minecraft Education Edition has got a specific world in it called Mindful Night that teaches students how to be mindful listening, breathing, even mindful writing. About 675,000 people, or 37,000 kids a month, use this world. And the full curriculum available free, Minecraft. And mindfulness is one of the few activities that is actually shown with MRI scans to rewire the brain. If you want some cool stuff, Goldie Hawn and I put together a series. I'm an advisor for Goldie Hawn's Mind Up Foundation, and we have a link of mindful activities, everything from mindful breathing and through to mindful learning. So We said before, and just 2 minutes, we said before that teachers wanted to know these things. So we thought about that and we thought, how can we do this at scale? So a tool has been built inside Microsoft Teams called Reflect. And what Reflect is, it's a tool that considers emotion as data. And it uses a check-in built within Teams to collect self-reported well-being information from students. As I click through, you'll see we click on the little heart. The teacher poses a reflect question. The student receives this. They get to choose how they're feeling today. They pick an emotion first of all, and then they have to match that to the word. So they drop down the menu, we pick on, and then we find the right word, and we get a chance to change that until we find the right emotion. Once it's locked and loaded, this is where the magic happens, because I can see as a student that I've recorded how I was feeling today. And what I'm able to do then is I'm able to see how my class responded, or my staff. I can't see their names as a student. I can just see how other people were feeling. And if I click on my previous responses, I get to see how I've been feeling and a number of check-ins, because emotions comes from the word motion, which literally means to move. They're constantly fluctuating, but often students and kids think, because I'm angry today, I've always been angry. Teachers can see the names. This is all within Microsoft Teams. Teachers can dig in and get a sense of previous reflections. And where it gets very cool is they can start to get a view across their whole class, the top words, and then they can start to add that wellbeing data to other data sets, which include things like this student's opened up the biology notebook, they've posted 3 things, they've reacted 4 times, they're feeling optimistic. So suddenly we're getting the heartbeat of emotion running alongside all of that other data that we collect about students, because how we feel matters. It affects everything and is the gatekeeper. So in closing, this is what we're thinking. The greatest potential here for technology, it's about humanizing learning, giving students voice, choice, agency, giving them a sense of control in a world that feels largely out of control, but bringing the data and insights to the educator and the school leader and the system leader so that they can intervene early and often to make a difference. And I'll leave the links and the deck with Ron to make sure you've got access to that. Respectful of the time, thank you for your time. Hopefully there was something interesting or surprising there about Microsoft and wellbeing.